There was no sugarcoating it. Donald Trump sticking with his hard stance last night in Arizona during a major speech on immigration.
We will build a great wall along the southern border, and Mexico will pay for the wall.
The Republican presidential nominee outlined a hardline set of proposals for tackling illegal immigration, promising to focus first on deporting illegals who have committed crimes.
Day one, my first hour in office, those people are gone. Zero tolerance for criminal aliens. Zero. I am going to create a new special deportation task force.
Under his presidency, Trump said there would be no amnesty, adding that no illegal immigrant will be legalized without first leaving and coming back the correct way.
It's our right as a sovereign nation to choose immigrants that we think are the likeliest to thrive and flourish and love us.
Trump also promised to cancel President Obama's executive actions and enforce current immigration laws. This all comes on the heels of a surprise trip to Mexico by the Republican nominee. In his meeting with President Peña Nieto, Trump defended the right of the United States to build a border wall.
It was a thoughtful and substantive conversation, and it will go on for a while, and in the end, we're all going to win. Both countries, we're all going to win.
Trump said that the two men didn't discuss who would pay for the cost of that wall, but Peña Nieto later tweeted, "At the start of the conversation with Donald Trump, I made it clear that Mexico will not pay for the wall." Hillary Clinton also took to Twitter to blast Trump's visit to Mexico, tweeting, "Trump just failed his first foreign test. Diplomacy isn't as easy as it looks."
Takes more than trying to make up for a year of insults and insinuations by dropping in on our neighbors for a few hours and then flying home again. That is not how it works.
But in the polls, Trump is closing the gap with Clinton. The two virtually tied in a new Fox News poll in a four-way race, with Clinton at 41% and Trump at 39%. And her unpopularity is reaching new highs, now tied with Trump among registered voters in the latest ABC News Washington Post poll. But with critical presidential debates yet to come, a lot can still happen between now and Election Day, now just a little over 2 months away. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Well, it gets curiouser and curious, as they say, but hold your money. You never can tell what's going to happen. Well, in other news, it looks like Florida could be getting hit with its first hurricane in 11 years. Wendy Griffith has that story.
That's right, Pat. Tropical storm Hermine could strengthen into a hurricane. It is expected to hit Florida tonight. The National Hurricane Center says Hermine could bring 5 to 10 inches of rain over parts of northwest Florida and southern Georgia, and possibly up to 15 inches in some areas. Hermine has already caused some serious damage in Florida with its heavy rains.
And it just never quit. It was still about 4.5 inches of water inside the house.
After Hermine passes through Florida, it's expected to move up the East Coast in the next few days. Voters in North Carolina won't have to show a photo ID when they go to the polls. A divided U.S. Supreme Court refused to reinstate North Carolina's voter ID law. The 4-4 decision upholds a lower court ruling that struck down the law. The ruling claimed it was tainted by racial discrimination. It also means the state will allow 17 days of early voting. The state's governor calls it a common-sense voter ID law. North Carolina is considered a key swing state in the presidential election. Well, it's not good news for Christians in Russia. Many believe a fresh wave of persecution is coming with a new law that forbids the public sharing of faith. Russian authorities call it an anti-terrorism measure, but as Heather Sells reports, it directly targets people of faith.
Christians in Russia can no longer freely share their faith in public, at home, or on social media. They must also obtain official approval before inviting people to church. Breaking any of these new rules can lead to fines and even prison.
Everybody's stunned. I mean, it came so quickly, unexpectedly. Nobody expected that.
Sergei Rakuba heads Mission Eurasia, which equips church leaders in Russia and across Central Asia. He says this controversial move brings back memories of laws passed by Soviet dictators Nikita Khrushchev and Joseph Stalin.
They're trying to push the evangelical church back behind the walls again, as the Soviets did.
For Christians, this means no informal Bible studies, dinners, or sharing of faith. House churches, estimated at 1,000 alone in Moscow, are outlawed. Preaching and praying can only happen at state-approved sites.
Religious freedom isn't just me going into the closet by myself to pray. Religious freedom is raising my family in the faith. It's meeting with friends or other adherents. It has property rights issues because we want to have a place to go. It has to do with freedom of speech.
Political scientist Eric Patterson says the new law aims to keep out any form of dissent in Russian society and confines religious activity strictly to the state-sanctioned Orthodox Church.
It's really designed to put evangelicals and other people of faith outside the Russian church into a very, very small box.
But Patterson maintains the U.S. can pressure Russia to repeal the law. The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom has already condemned it. And a State Department spokesperson told CBN News, "We have raised our concerns about this law with the government of Russia." While no public statements have been made, the Secretary of State can approve the use of sanctions.
And it seems as if the U.S. really said this is very, very important and explain the rationale why and use these levers that we already have, that this would be one of those areas where we could find some sort of accommodation with Russia.
No one knows how far Russian authorities will go in implementing this law. In the meantime, Russian believers are prepared to stand up for their faith while possibly facing the same persecution endured by their forefathers.
We get lots of messages from these young leaders, and so they say, we're not going to obey this law. So this law that prohibits us from the most essential thing that the believer has to do, so that sharing the gospel.
Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thanks, Heather. Definitely a step backward for Christians in Russia, Pat.
You know, we've pulled back the operation we had in Russia, but our headquarters in Kiev, in the Ukraine, which is still relatively benign, and our relationship with the Orthodox Church is very warm in the Ukraine. But this is a move by the Russian Orthodox Church to take power. And it used to be an arm of the state. Archbishop Nikodem was a KGB agent. He was the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, and he was a KGB agent. So Putin wants to have the church once again as an arm of the state. But this, to me, is outrageous because with the freedom that came about, we distributed millions and millions of copies of the Bible over there. And we have in the Ukraine close to 100,000 cell churches. So the people in Russia are very religious. They want to worship God, and there was a great move of God. And I think this is one step too far for Mr. Putin. I think the Lord himself is going to knock him down on this one. Wendy?
Pat, superstar actor Mel Gibson is talking about a follow-up film to the 2004 blockbuster movie, The Passion of the Christ. Gibson spoke to evangelist and pastor Greg Laurie during his annual Harvest Crusade last weekend at Angel Stadium in Anaheim, California. Gibson told Laurie and the crowd that the movie focuses on what happens after the crucifixion of Jesus as shown in The Passion. He said it would be a major project.
Of course, that's a huge undertaking.
Yes.
And, you know, it's not The Passion, too. I mean, it's called The Resurrection.
That's right.
And
That's right.
of course, that's a very big subject.
Yes.
It needs to be looked at because we don't want to just do a simple rendering of it. I mean, we can all read what happened, but in order to really experience and explore probably deeper meanings of what it's about, it's going to take some doing. And Randall Wallace is up to the task.
Yeah, Randall Wallace is the award-winning filmmaker who wrote Braveheart. He's working on the new script. And Pat, obviously Mel Gibson, they're feeling the weight of this new project.
Well, he's got a lot of garbage to clean up in his own life. I mean, he had that rant about Jews, and then he broke with his wife and was screaming on the telephone. And in that interview there, he looked like he was just slightly off of it. I don't know what's the matter with him. But that Passion of the Christ was magnificent. It was simply magnificent. But it had so much violence in it. And I don't know what it is with Mel. I wish him the best on this one, but I tell you, Randall Wallace is unbelievable producer, unbelievably gifted writer, producer, filmmaker. But I hope Mel comes out of this one. But what I just saw on the screen, if you were like me, you said, what in the world is wrong with him? Terry?
Well, coming up, two ex-cons see their dream become a reality after 20 years in the making. Find out how they're helping people to transition out of prison and rebuild their lives after this.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Tomorrow.
At this point, there was no hope.
A stopped heart.
There is nothing that we can do for her.
And a torn aorta.
Really, it's a death sentence.
One divine message on the road.
And I knew the Lord was with me no matter what.
And a 3-in-1 miracle.
Anything that came out, it was all God, you know.
On the next 700 Club.
Well, you're watching the 700 Club, and we are so happy you're with us. We've got some exciting things. By the way, are you ready for something today?
I am.
A great breakthrough.
I am.
A new horse.
I know.
A new horse. His name is Habanero. He is Spanish, and that means hot sauce.
I like that.
And I've got a picture of Wendy. Whatever her name is.
Edie?
Edie took a little selfie, one of those small cameras, and got some kind of interesting pictures of him doing some moves. So we'll show that later to let you know I'm still in the game. Well, Wendy Hatcher was a British woman who moved to the United States from London and spent 30 years devoted to a prison ministry. Her example inspired two people she once discipled behind bars to follow in her footsteps. An amazing story of grace. Charlene Aaron brings it to us.
At the young age of 9, tragedy struck the family of Pauline Rogers.
I watched my mother, in self-defense, of course, kill my father. But even in self-defense, it still was a traumatic experience.
Memories from that painful night haunted her for years.
That's all I could remember, was the gunshot, that sound, and I would go to bed sometimes at night hearing that sound. And of course, my mother had to be taken to jail.
Time behind bars would eventually be her fate as Rogers turned to shoplifting. At first, it was a way to support her siblings, but it soon turned into a lifestyle of crime.
I just kept the process going with stealing. Some of it, all of it was not to benefit my siblings and caretaking. I was reaping benefits because I dressed good, I smelled good, and, shoplifting afforded me that. Landed me in prison for shoplifting. And I had a 6-year sentence. I stayed in prison 3 years.
While in prison, Pauline cried out to God and became a Christian, serving as an assistant to the chaplain. Shortly after getting out, she met and married Frederick, who also had a criminal past.
I caught an armed robbery case, me and 3 other guys. At the time, I was sentenced to 30 years in Mississippi State Penitentiary at the age of 15. At the age of 16, I was in prison.
8 years into his sentence, Frederick gave his life to Jesus Christ.
I made a promise to him 26 years ago that I would serve him.
Now ordained ministers, the Rogers aim to keep that promise by serving other ex-offenders.
Pauline and her husband recently opened the home behind me for women who are coming out of prison. It's a home that honors the woman who was a mentor to Pauline when she was behind bars.
In 1954, Wendy Hatcher, a British citizen and wife of an American military officer, left London for her new home in Jackson, Mississippi. A devout Christian, Hatcher entered prison ministry, becoming the first female chaplain in the state's Department of Corrections. Through Bible studies and counseling sessions, Chaplain Hatcher ministered to hundreds of inmates, including Pauline and Frederick.
She simply loved. She didn't see color. Not just with me, with everybody that she served. I mean, some of the men that she was up against, these were criminals, rapists, murderers, thieves, molesters, you name it. But she had no fear. She just exemplified more of who Christ was in her than she did with the color of their skin, their size, their crime. None of that was a factor.
That love played a huge role in their lives.
The first birthday cake I ever had, Miss Hatcher did it.
Hatcher also risked her career by giving Pauline a place to stay after her time in prison.
I didn't want to go back to the environment that I had left. Miss Hatcher, against MDOC rules and policies, opened her home, and I lived with her until I got married.
More than 20 years have passed since Pauline and Frederick walked out of prison. They know the hardships of starting over after serving time and dreamed of helping others like them transition back into society.
I think that in order for people who have been incarcerated to come out of prison and really have a fair chance, they have to be surrounded around positive people and positive things. And it's our way of giving back.
And it's been years, 20-something years of telling her, our vision, we wanted to do this. And she was, oh, honey, I hope I live to see it.
On June 18th, they turned their dream into reality by opening the Wendy Hatcher Transitional Home, a place for female ex-offenders to receive necessary support and healing. Chaplain Hatcher joined them for the special ribbon-cutting ceremony. The Rogers say dedicating the home to Hatcher allows them to honor the woman who gave them hope and direction.
I wanted her to never forget. I wanted this state to never forget. I wanted to never forget the impact that she had on my life.
Hatcher, now 83, writes about her experiences in Time Served, the Wendy Hatcher story. In it, she says, I feel greatly honored to have my name on a home that will continue to nurture those in need long after I am gone from this earth. Frederick and Pauline Rogers are grateful to be a part of that legacy. Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Jackson, Mississippi.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. I'm just so grateful for people whose lives have impacted others. It's just lovely to see. And now, my hobby is the equine species. And I had a big equine. He was 17.3 hands, but he got bit by a tick. And he got Lyme disease, and he just deteriorated, and it wasn't working. So I have another animal, and he is Spanish. His name is Habanero, which is hot sauce.
And does his name fit him?
Well, I want to show you. It'll only be about 30 seconds worth of video, but there he is. What do you think of him? Isn't he pretty?
Wow.
Huh? Isn't he lovely?
Wow.
He's doing a passage there for me. Isn't he beautiful?
Now, you don't just ride. You like to put them through the paces.
Oh, absolutely. You don't
That's
just ride.
Fun,
Good heavens, no.
A trail is not enough.
Yeah, he was pre St. George. He was showing at pre St. George. That's what dressage means training in French, and these are horses that train to height. But wasn't that beautiful?
He is beautiful.
Yeah.
And do you feel like, I know for a long time when you have a horse that you're really connected to, like you were to Stefano, that it's hard then to come in because you have a very personal relationship with a horse that you ride.
I haven't established that one with this one yet, but I'm getting there.
Good.
He gets to know me and I get to know him, but wasn't that beautiful?
Good. He is gorgeous. Well, you made a good decision.
All right. Well, what's next?
You made a good decision. Well, up next, confessions from a stripper.
The tension's on you and the money, you know, when someone's laying down $100 bills at your feet, how do you say no to that? It's like a drug. I mean, it turns into an addiction.
Watch how she finally kicks the habit after this.
Are you missing out on life because you're putting off neck or back surgery? Call Laser Spine Institute, the leader in minimally invasive spine surgery, to learn how a less than 1-inch incision can have you up and walking within a few hours of surgery, free from chronic back pain.